Hey guys, and welcome back to our ongoing coverage of the Psycho River Killer. And today we're going to go into what the word on the street has been. What have other people been saying about, yes, Lee Eun-hae, the wife who allegedly with her boyfriend, Cho Hyun-soo, planned and plotted and tried multiple times to send her husband, Yoon Sang-yeop, to another world in order to collect life insurance money. The two are being held in custody right now. They have been charged formally, and what we want to know now is to answer some of the questions you guys have put on the message board of what have people been saying that were close to them that would shed more light on who these people are. So there have been formal charges. This is the latest on what's going on with their legal situation. Lee Eun-hae has still refused to take the court-appointed lawyer, so there's been a delay in that, but they have still been questioned, and there have been some more information coming out of that process. But early on, what we did hear was from her own words, only in the form of a written statement to the judge. And in it, she mainly was trying to defend her position and minimize any suspicions around the unfortunate text that they found where she said, "Oh, I put poison into my husband's soup, but why isn't he dead yet?" And the poison in question was pufferfish, blowfish poison, or the blood. If you don't cut it correctly and if it gets into your food, you may be gone. And so apparently in February of 2019, she had tried it and it didn't work. But in this letter, she addressed it to the honorable judge that I respect. And the family was like, what the heck? No letter to us. No sign of remorse to the family of the husband who have had to suffer through all of this. And so in this type of court case, who's the real star? I can tell you from personal experience. Is it the defendant? Is it the plaintiff? Is it the law? Is it even justice? No, it's the judge. The judge is the star of that courtroom here in Korea, and the judge is where everybody focuses their attention and energy. And that's why she wrote this letter to the judge, appealing for some sort of understanding or to try to sway the judge. In Korea, it's so unfortunate, but what the main focus is not on justice or finding the truth. It's essentially the judge's comfort and ability to rule in a way that will help their career. I was even in a situation where the lawyer was like, I got some inside information on this judge. That's kind of like why you pay for some lawyers or not, to get some sort of inside information. And they said like, oh, he doesn't like it if the documents that we submit are over 30 pages. They just don't want to read it, and they want it in this format. I'm just like, what does the law want? What does justice want? It wasn't of anybody's concern. And the fact that she knew this does speak some volumes and does show that she kind of knows, how this justice system has been corrupted. Well, speaking of lawsuits and seeing what may happen in terms of swaying the side to justice, because media attention does help. The more media attention that is on a case, the less a judge can kind of do whatever they want. On paper, in Korea, this is why she wants a fancy lawyer. In Korea, I've been told, and I believe it, aside from DUI cases, a judge can kind of rule either way. If they want it to go a certain direction, they can totally make it go in a certain direction by squeezing the parameters down. And so, like, you know, kind of like if you're testing, like, is it gonna be hot today? And then, you know, you only like test it during like high noon where like the sun is shining. It's like, oh yeah, it's hot. Or if you don't want it to be hot, you're just like, oh, well, let's just like, you know, test it in the middle of the night. And so by reducing the parameters and hoping nobody, you know, calls you out on like, that's kind of sus, then you can do anything you want. That's why media attention is important. But what the family of Yoon has been doing right now is saying like, look, we want the adoption of Lee Eun-hae's daughter to be invalidated. They're like, this was shocking. So what they have been saying to the media before was that they only found out about this adoption of Lee Eun-hae's daughter from a previous relationship. Go back to the other videos to find out. And they had only found out about this on the day of her husband's funeral, where she brought the daughter and introduced that daughter to the family for the first time and said, look, this is your, you know, granddaughter, so you have to kind of treat her as part of the family. The family was shocked. They said that they were shocked, they were trying to grieve, and then they started to say like, you know, as all of these details have started to come out, it looked like it might not have been a simple accident. And so they got really suspicious because, again, she did not show any remorse at her husband's funeral. She was outside most of the time, like in the parking lot, smoking cigarettes and playing games on her phone. And then when they were thinking about this, they said that, wow, it looks like she literally brought this daughter to say that all of the remaining assets that would pass on after the death of her husband would only go to her and her daughter. Because under Korean law, if there was no daughter, then it would have been split up between the widow and the dead person's parents. But because there's a daughter now in the equation, the parents get cut out and all of the money goes towards essentially the daughter. But because the daughter is a minor, the mother controls it. But what is even creepier, the family said, was once the parents of the husband pass away, their assets go directly to the daughter. And that means that Lee Eun-hae was planning this, it looks like, by utilizing her daughter to get not only hands on everything alive and when he was not living in terms of assets from her husband, so-called husband, but even now the husband's parents. So what kind of messed up situation is that? So legally they're trying to protect themselves from that situation occurring, because what the family is saying is that they did not agree to, or that it looks like Yoon did not agree to this adoption, that this was like a forced kind of like manipulation or something that was not legally done 100%, and so therefore it should be annulled, because they never even as a couple lived together as husband and wife, and they never even lived together as a family together with the daughter. The daughter was always being taken care of, I believe, by her parents. And so they're saying, okay, nope, no more. So investigators have said that the plan was already working, because out of the payments that were available to be made in terms of assets being handed down, it immediately went to the daughter before the parents. So her plan is working. She has secured her own retirement plan. There must have been some sort of like dark playbook that she studied real hard instead of finishing high school in order to pull something like this. So on a public forum, Yoon's sister and her husband were saying that, look, we really would like to plead with Lee Eun-hae and her boyfriend to submit some sort of statements or letters of remorse and to ask for forgiveness for what they've done, or just say that they've done something wrong. But she said even if they do that, they would never, ever, ever be able to forgive the two, because as far as they're concerned, her brother was backstabbed. The silver lining to all of this is that at least the family is saying now that, they've had to suffer really much in silence since 2019, and now they felt like, they were hoping that this day would eventually come where the truth would come to light and people would be on their side, and they thanked all the people who have given them support, and so they feel like a load has been lifted off their shoulders, but they still are pleading with the public to say, please do not let this go until real justice has been served at the end of the trial, until we get some sort of a sentence. And I would say she is actually in that type of situation more fortunate than others, because like I said, other cases, they try to keep quiet so that you don't have the pressure of the media and the eyes of the country on the judge. Really, it's about the judge. And so this is very important that we have people trying to hold the justice system accountable, because even in Lee Eun-hae's texts, we have seen that she texted a friend saying like, oh, well, I think the main prosecutor is going to be probably transferred to a different department in February of 2023. You know how she was hiding out on the run since basically January of 2022. So for about a year, she was planning to stay in hiding and save up enough money, about $300,000, so that she could hire a law firm like Kim and Jung and be able to then get the law manipulated, and with the heat off of it and with the main prosecutor probably sent to a different she had already planned this. She had already figured out like that is how to game the system, and that is exactly how you would game that system. And so the whole Kim and Jang thing, that came from a different friend who said that, yeah, that's what I think she told me, like she was really wanting to save up her money and, pull more scams, get enough money, hire the best lawyer. Kim and Jang basically in Korea is like the premier law firm, for better or worse. This law firm has so many people that the lawyers it's one of those law firms where people who work there don't even know each other and might not ever meet each other ever in their career there. And it's somewhat of a revolving door because they're always hiring people who used to be in high positions of the government. So in terms of like a Washingtonian type of context, it's like one of those lobbying firms, law firms, kind of, those places where you see like, oh, the former Secretary of Treasury or former Secretary of Defense or former congressman or former senator, like they're all like, in this organization. And they know, because they were on both sides of the law, they know exactly how everything works, and they know exactly how to reach the right people because they used to be colleagues. So part of like the services at Kim and Jang, if you are like, someone like this Psycho River killer and you're trying to delay the process of justice, where basically like you have court dates, and then you have like the appeal, like there's like the appellate court, the first court that makes a ruling, then you can appeal it, and then it's the appeals court, and then you can go to the next. You can, if you go to Kim and Jen or someone like, you know, really high-powered law firm, they can extend this process out almost indefinitely or as long as possible that you can pay for in Korea, because they know all the judges and they know, like, you know, how to work the system, so that the people like so the people pursuing justice will get tired out and maybe give up, and then attention will kind of go down, and then governments will change, and perhaps, you know, they'll be able to continuously manufacture some sort of alternate reality where they're innocent. So the family also said that, you know what, you know, this was to the producers of Hot Daddy Show. They're like, you know what, the main point of this situation, the thing that makes it really odd and really super sus, is that my brother, the husband who died, could not swim. And they were always trying to put him in situations where he was in the water in very precarious situations, like in the middle of nowhere, like on a banana boat speeding, or like jumping off of cliffs into water at night. And so they're like, yeah, that is super sus. They also said they found those statements from the insurance company saying that, hey, if you don't make your next payment of the premium, your insurance policy is going to expire on July 1st. And when did he ultimately die? The day before July 1st, 4 hours before, that's when they jumped in. So about 3.5 hours before the insurance policy was set to expire, the unfortunate accident happened. Now let's go back to some more information that we found out, you know, like the word on the street, and also things that have kind of come to light on how they actually got him to jump. Because originally, and this is what probably like a fancy lawyer would really focus on, is that, well, they didn't push him. He jumped on his own. Well, now this term gaslighting has really even entered the lexicon of Korea, but I don't even know if it actually can be applied in a legal setting. But gaslighting's equivalent in a legal context is more like jishi, or orders, or like a threat. And that actually holds a lot of weight in the Korean legal system, because they do recognize that if somebody forces you to do something, that actually is the fault of the person forcing you, because the way that we have a more authoritarian hierarchical structure is that people above you or who have more power than you actually can make you do things you don't want to do, and therefore, because of that, the onus of the responsibility does shift to that person. Now, in gaslighting, it's sort of like a cousin of that. I don't know exactly if that would hold, but that is sort of the basis that they are going off of in terms of saying that this is more than just attempted or accidental murder, that this was a premeditated murder. Why? Oh my gosh, this is kind of gross. But they were at the river, right? And they waited until sundown, like we said in the other video. The lifeguards went home, and then there's all this pressure. There's all this kind of like, why don't you go jump? You know, there's two guys, the boyfriend, and then like the ex-boyfriend who helped, you know, with the scams in the motels, and Yoon Sang-yeop still at the water. Another couple were told to go to the car to rest, and they were pressuring him, saying like, this is around like 8 o'clock p.m., dark, cold, and they're like, hey, just jump, let's go jump. And then he's like, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that. He's like really scared, and they do have video footage of that, like, you know, where he's looking really scared, but officials aren't releasing it because they think that they have evidence, like metadata evidence, that that video was edited and corrupted, and it was submitted by Lee Eun-hae herself to try to exonerate herself. Like, she thought that, oh, this will prove that nothing bad happened, but it looked obviously distorted and edit. I don't know how they got metadata and they couldn't even get any basic data off of the SJM case's phones, but okay. So then she was saying like, fine, if you don't want to jump, then do you want me to jump even though I'm on my period? I'm on my period, why do you want me to jump? Okay, fine, I'll go jump. So there's this kind of like psychological threat of basically saying like, you're gonna make your wife jump in the water and embarrass all of us and force me to do something I don't want to do when you could just do it. See the mental manipulation? They could have just gone home. They don't need to jump again. And then the guys were egging him on, saying like, hey, once you jump, we can go home. You know, if you want to go home, you got to go jump. That's the condition. You have to jump. So on the guy side, they're basically manipulating him, saying that like, they can't go back home and, you know, leave the river unless he jumps, which is totally unnecessary and totally manipulative. And then on the wife side, she's saying like, if you don't go, then I'll just jump, but I'm on my period, and like, you're gonna make me do that on my period? Both sides. So it looked like he just wanted to kind of maybe, okay, fine, let's get it over with, and then, you know, we can go home. Unfortunately, that was the wrong choice. And throughout the day, remember, he was being humiliated by both of them, you know, even at that one point, making him break open a watermelon with his head and filming it all, and like, you know, laughing at him and sniggering and seeing like how maybe upset he was by it. And so he was looking to probably also reclaim some of his dignity and get the approval of his wife. He missed his wife. His wife never visited him, and we have from these messages showing that he even said to the boyfriend, because he did know about that situation, saying like, I wish she would pay attention to me and love me as much as she does you. Weird. But not so weird in the land of narcissists and psychopaths and sociopaths. What she had basically just done was a thing called triangulation. And so it, you know, basically you're pitting people against each other, making them compete, and all the while you are manipulating them, using them, and you don't look like the bad guy, because to them, they're in competition for your approval. They just think the other person is actually the bad guy, when in reality, this is like her perfect way of being able to do bad things continuously to her husband, but not be blamed, because he, in his mind, the enemy is the boyfriend. And she keeps this situation going on in order for her to never be the bad guy and to control the situation. Many of you have asked, like, what kind of guy would stay in a situation like this? Who would put up with this? And we do have the recordings of their conversations. And, you know, he even did say to his wife, you know, maybe we should just end this. Maybe we should just break up. And she's like, at that point, she's just like, kind of trying to act a little bit sweeter, like, why would you want to break up with me? And he said that, like, oh, you know, it wasn't about the, you know, you hitting me last night. Like, she was physically abusive to him. And you know what her excuse was? Oh, when I drink, the people that I like the most and care about the most, I just kind of hit them out of fun, or this is kind of like just how I express myself. But nonetheless, he was basically really upset and crying and saying, like, you know, how he might want to end this because he has no money. And so she was like, I think at this point still thinking like there was still some money to take, and she was just like, why would you want to break up with me? How could you do this? Oh, no. And then, you know, she sends creepy pictures of saying like, you know, you'll never be able to get rid of me. Because these psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, they screen their victims. They try to see, first of all, who has this overabundance of desire to help other people and to care about others before themselves. That's number one. And then number two, they start testing them with strange kind of syntax and kind of ways of communication that start to suspend reality. So if they're trying to see whether you can deal with things that don't make sense, like if they just make up a false reality or rewrite the past, that you would be okay with that, or like you can accept that, or like the way that life is being interpreted, if you will accept their interpretation of it. And I knew a girl like this. She would like kind of like do it maybe in a joking way, but she would basically say like, you know, like if you said like, oh, you know, like I like your earrings or something, and she's saying like, what, are you saying that my earrings look like cheap or something? And it's just like, what, like it. But then what they're trying to do is like make it be like, oh no, that's not what I meant, like, you know, that's not, you know, it's a beautiful, you know, like they're trying to find the people who wouldn't be like kind of like being like, she crazy, more of like, oh no, that's not what I meant, like, you know. And that is like the screening process, like, and so I guess he's kind of like one of those guys, and that's like kind of unfortunate. What we do also know is that he couldn't really talk to anybody about this situation, so he would write himself text messages that would just go back to him, and I guess he felt like he couldn't really talk to anybody, and so he talked to himself. And he said that, oh, I even got like a rope, but I doubt I could ever use it. But, you know, I think he's saying like, I just can't bear this anymore. And he said like, you know, even if I did pass away, I doubt my own wife would come to my funeral because she's always busy. There's even evidence of him looking up how to perhaps sell his organs, although he didn't go that far, but there are like code terms on like how to find this stuff like on the black web, and that was kind of crazy. So what did friends or people who knew Cho Hyun-soo, the boyfriend, say about him in some of these media interviews? What's the word on the street? So there's this one guy who knew him back in junior high, and even then he said like, you know, that kid was so obsessed with money all the time. And then he said like, up until the point that, you know, when he was talking to him, he said that Cho Hyun-soo said like, oh, I'm gonna work at the counter of a massage parlor, which is essentially kind of like a, you know, ladies of the night place. And so he was so obsessed with that kind of easy money, it seemed. And he said that he met Lee Eun-hae at such an establishment because she was like an employee there, and so that this was in their early 20s, so that most likely it looks like these two have been in cahoots and been planning these kind of stunts from a long time ago and have been doing so many different varieties of this. And this definitely does look like a premeditated murder when it came to Yoon Sang-yeop at the river. And just to give you a little bit more insight into what kind of a guy Yoon was, like I said, remember I said he didn't even have like money to replace his shoes. He didn't have even $3 to go to the convenience store to buy some ramen and water to tide him over the weekend until the work week would start, where he could just eat at the company cafeteria for free. He asked some friend to borrow just $3 and they were like, what? No, that's kind of crazy. Like, so the friend sent him $100. And then Yoon, what he did was send $97 back, and so that he would only borrow $3. So what do you guys think? Do you think this actually creates more of a character sketch that really does show that it does look like it was a premeditated situation rather than just an accident or an attempt? Because it looked like there were many attempts that were premeditated, that were precisely timed with the resumption of the life insurance after they made a payment. Sketchy, sketchy, sketchy. Well, share your comments below and remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye, guys.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.